actually the first the main title is overly too serious, but the subtitle actually is the real thing. It's a real thing. We often talk about biologists often study humans in terms of DNA cells, or even organs, or different things, but never venture into something higher, like a groups and societies and behavior and these things. Turn out to be they are already carved up, taken away by sociologists and anthropologists and economists. So I have to represent our biologists to reclaim these things. But turn out to be, I am in that area, but I'm fundamentally an evolutionary biologist and animal behaviorist, but happen to be overlapped with their specialties. So I have to do these things. So just in case we were prepared for the worst scenario, that is, there would be nobody showing up, and only Jeff and I. So we said, well, probably we could have a conversation at least. But I think based on what we have prepared, and we will stick to that conversation. Okay, so just make everything casual. Raise your hands if you have questions. It's okay to interrupt me, and we can, if some other questions pop up on your mind, let's discuss it. So yeah, that's the topic. So some of them actually are feels quite relevant for this year. So in 2013, I published got this one published. The Robin Hood mentality and our biological nature, based on fairness from comprehensive perspectives to look at the single issue, that fairness. So I gave a lot of talks in small gatherings and groups, informal and formally, and in different ways. And one day I found, quite unrelated to my topic, I found Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson was only making $300,000 a year. His salary was about $300,000 since 2012 for the first 2 seasons, when he did really well, super well. He was 75th pick, 3rd round, which means nobody wants you. But probably that was the reason he made it that little. But of course, you think about $300,000 is a lot, right, for us. But these NFL players their salaries are always oversized. $300,000 is very little, and their career is about 3.3 years long. So which means, they make 1 year of money. We work for 10 years. They cannot play all the time, and their skills are quite limited, and many of them actually declare a bankruptcy a few years later. So actually, it's just sort of like a money you make it now. Otherwise, you don't make money. So $300,000 is not a lot. So for the first 2 years, he was making $300,000, and the third year he was making like $500,000. So you think that would be the end of his career. Actually, his career soared. Turned out to be, I was looking that why he did so well. And then you look at the picture that Pete Carroll and Wilson was soaring above the skyline of Seattle. And I said, well, probably it has something to do with the fairness. So I wrote an article about it, and I called it the overquote. I look at the data. Well, my professional bias. Then you look at the data, and I showed it to Holly. Actually, I was surprised. The data looks like that. This is the salary ratio of quarterback over their team average. So you could see that the quarterback who are paid intermediate level actually do best. And then you see the kind of nice, like the inverse bell shape, that kind of thing. And then you look at, well, this is Wilson, and this is Newton. Newton actually had a perfect year last year. I had a perfect year, and Drew Brees was quite mediocre because he was probably paid a lot. So I was trying to link whether there is a pattern, whether this is the case. And I wrote the article and published on the online magazine called Evolutionary. It's 2 words, evolutionary economics. So Evolutionary. So I wrote an article about that, and I got a lot of response and a lot of criticisms as well. They said, well, this guy does not know anything. And FL is all about talent. You spend more money and you get more talented players, and you do better. You do better. And obviously, in Seattle's case, that was not. That was not. So I took these criticisms seriously, and I then looked into more information. I then pull out all the salary information, which is available online anyway. All the salary information about these 32 teams over 21 years since 1995, when nobody cared about Seattle. If you were wearing any Seattle jersey, probably John Kidner would be there, and people would say, "Yeah, that guy is not," because Seattle never won at that time, so nobody cared about it. So I pulled the data from 1995 and analyzed the data, and you see that this relative team salary Gini is a measurement of inequality. It's sort of like Shannon Weaver and these indices, Simpson index. The Gini is the economic equivalence of these inequality data. So I look at that. Well, yeah, looks like there is no correlation. You look at the R value, it's so small you can't see it, but the R value is extremely small, which means no correlation. But if you look at, I look at into the data again, and I found, well, when the Gini index actually normally contribute negatively to the team performance, but just by a little bit, which also means, yeah, there's a negative influence based on salary inequality for a team, but it's very small. And then I also tested whether the talent matters, which is pretty easily, you can draw that how much a team spent on the player's salary and versus the performance of the team, the winning rate or the other winning. And then I find, well, there is some correlation, but it's minor as well. If you look at the R value, it's quite small, but correlation turned out to be significant. But it's tiny. You look at this value, you look at the slope, which means how much it contributes to the team performance. So the more money a team spends, it does bring in some performance increment, but not by much. So there are a lot of factors involved, not just salary, not just equality in terms of team salary. There are many other factors involved. So we know that, right? That's what make the games interesting, right? Because it's unpredictable. Otherwise, you have one team always win. For example, like a Patriots, and people began to hate Patriots, for example. So your team keep winning, and then people began to hate you. So that is the kind of message. I think there are quite a lot of people hate Seattle Seahawks as well in the nation because of the performance. And then I look at the leadership issue, and which is the best asserted by the quarterback. And this is the quarterback salary against the league. So the league is 32 teams. And you do find that it looks like there is some kind of correlation in some well-paid quarterback or teams with well-paid quarterbacks well above the league tended to do better. But then you look at within the team, within its own team, the picture is quite different. And this outlier is what? This outlier? Drew Brees. Since they got the championship in which year? In 2011, right? Drew Brees got a huge contract. But since then, they never did well. So Drew Brees over there. But you will see, this is a quite different chart that, well, if you pay a lot for supposed to be good quarterbacks, what happens is, this is, of course, it's a regular season, your team performance, you see that the variation goes down, right? The variation goes down, which means your team performance gets what? Mediocre. It's just stable, but you won't swing like here. You know, this is winning rate. You won't swing like that large. You know, you get high-paying quarterbacks, your variation gets down, which means your team performance tended to be more predictable, but not the greatest. So that is the kind of 21 years of data. I just got the statistics a few weeks ago, and I'm working on a paper and see how this will work out. But this is getting to be a serious science. And in the same article, I related to the salary structure, which also means incentive systems in the business world. Incentive systems versus the company performance. So I wrote about a Seattle a company called Gravity Payments. It's sort of like people process your visa payments, and they get money from the processing. And there was this guy, 31-year-old Dan Price, as the CEO of Gravity. He's 35 years old, looks like a shaggy hair, you know, the kind of hippie-like person. And one day, he jumped out of his bed, and he found that, well, he read an article in Psychology Today or something. He found that $70 income would generate the happiest, would make people the happiest. Not less, not too much more. $70,000 income would give people the happiest time. So he jumped out of the bed and one day and thinking, why not my company should do doing that? So he was at that time. He was there. Was the in 2014. He was making $1 million. He said, "Well, no, I'm not going to make $1 million. I'm going to make $70,000, and making everybody in my company $70,000 a year." And that news became a real news and went viral. And the talk show host, the conservative talk show host, Rush Limbaugh, was saying, well, this guy was a communist. The company won't do well because all these talents will leave, and whatever left are janitors and secretaries. And his prediction in 2015, there was earlier part of 2015, 6 months later, actually the company did really well. This is a data from the Inc. magazine, 91% of retention rate versus the industrial average 68. So people really like Gravity. Some actually would take a big cut to come to Gravity. One Yahoo executive who was making like more than $2 million would like to take a cut and work for Gravity. So looks like within 6 months after the implementation of the program, $70,000 program, the company was doing well, quite different from what Rush Limbaugh predicted. The problem was that could this company continue? Or would these talents, people who have talent in the higher level performers would leave the company? So I got in touch with these people, and then I found that at that time, earlier this year, the company had expanded to be like over 200 people from about 100 or 200 people. So the company was doing well, and then I was thinking that, well, I really wish that the company would continue to do that, and I was thinking that what could make people stay with $70,000. And this is, of course, you have $70,000. The high performers will say, well, I could make more money out somewhere else. And those who were unable to leave the position would be stuck there. And then you really have to look at the incentive structure. What makes people do well. And then I look at these, how people see themselves as successful in their careers. And in an article based on survey by Right Management, it shows that these people who come for performance, the people who come for earning a prominent position, and people who come for money actually constituted about 30%, only 30%. The vast majority of people, 60% of people come for what? Enjoyment, happiness, different kinds of reward, respect, recognition, the different kinds of reward, not for money, not for prominence, not for making a fame or something. Vast majority of people actually come for something else. So basically, the way today in so many companies, you just give them salary and put up all these golden parachutes, all these bonuses. Actually, you do not reward the people who really love, the vast majority of people who really love their work. So this is the kind of thing I think Gravity, even with relatively very even salary level, could, if they do well to keep these people there, I think they will continue to do well. Because these incentives are good enough to make people live happily. So the incentive structures are totally different in this new experimental company. And then I wandered around, and then I look at the reward, the incentive structure, and I was thinking that what is wrong with the current economic and financial theory? And I look at the most popular one, that is so-called neoclassical economics. And that was also a time I was teaching behavioral economics at the same time for DHC. And I found that these neoclassical economics is based on two kinds of assumptions: that people are looking for maximal profit at the shortest period of time. So right now, right here, people, and obviously that's not our human nature. We do not look at incentives like that. We have many others. So then I look at these neoclassical economics, economic theory, and I compared with what we discovered in behavioral economics or psychological or evolutionary studies. It's called a game theory. And this was a study done in the 1960s at Ohio State University. And there was, you can't see well, right? Sorry for being, for not finding it earlier. But basically, there was a two people cooperation game. Two people are given money for cooperation or defection. If they cooperate, each will get 4 cents. 1960s, there was, I calculated probably about 50 cents, probably about 50 cents today, but that was 1960s. If two people cooperate, they will get 4 cents each. If one defect, one cooperate, the defector will get 3 cents. The cooperate will only get 1 cent. And this is symmetrical. If both of them defect, and then you get nothing. So in this kind of matrix, payoff matrix, you would predict that people would cooperate because it will give them the maximal amount of reward, for both of them. When they tested the result, guess the result. The result is totally off the prediction. 50% of people choose to defect. 50%. You think these people are psychopathic? 50% of people, I mean, 50%, it's too high, the proportion, but 50% of people choose to defect. So this is not really a cooperation game. So I was thinking around it, and then I realized, well, the way people calculate reward is wrong. Then I look at the subtract. I think people are more complex than that, the kind of machine looking for the maximal reward. People also think about their partners, they compare, they compete, they cooperate, they also compete. So what happens is, if you look at the net difference between the two, then you have matrix like this, and you have cooperate in terms of net relative payoff. It's the same. You get 4 cents, I get 4 cents, or you get 0 cents, I get 0 cents. So if you subtract the difference between the two, the reward structure would be what? This is the same. You're getting 4 cents versus getting 0 cents. Would produce same result, exactly fitting what? Fitting the competition model, right? If we are the same, it does not matter how much we get. I'm not doing better than you do. So people tend to be equally likely to either cooperate or mutual cooperation or mutual defection. So people are not really psychopathic. They are rational competitors. So that's the result, that the neoclassical economics theory does not fit into this this kind of situation. And then I wrote that article. I said, well, yeah, you can look at the relative payoff, which is more realistic in terms of evolutionary process.
So when you say, what it showed is that people are rational yet competitive?
They are rational, they are competitive, yet the rational does not mean you look for the highest reward. You compare your reward with your potential competitors or cooperators. So they compare with each other. So then you look at, well, this fits well with evolutionary theory. We look for relative payoff, and it's not just a one-time payoff. We also cooperate, we sacrifice at the same time. But in the end, we have the lifetime fitness. Even I sacrifice something at this moment, I am looking for something better in the future. So we do that all the time. So this fits well with evolutionary theory. So the two fixes for the neoclassical economics is that we look for relative payoff. And we do not look for short-term payoff as well. We look for lifetime payoff. And that will fix the theoretical weaknesses. But then at the same time, I began to think about something else, that I realized that the current Congress rating was so low that only 10% of people approved the Congress, the current congressman. So that was really, really low. And I was thinking that, what is the problem? And also this year in particular, the anti-establishment sentiment is so strong that first, Ben Carson got 15 minutes of fame. Ben Carson was so innocent. He knew neurosurgery, but nothing else about world affairs. And he made a really, really outrageous claims. It feels like he was living somewhere else. And ultimately, Donald Trump, of course. People just did not like the establishments, from Jeb Bush to Rubio to a few others, Ted Cruz. So people just don't like establishment, which the sentiment is particularly strong among these Republicans. So that was the ultimate election of Donald Trump. Anybody would be fine, but not the establishment. So I was thinking, what's wrong with the establishment? So then I realized the so-called the peacock's tail, which is a symbol of sexual selection. Honesty, one sexual selection theory is about honesty, that if you claim you are good, you have to show it. That's the idea. And how to show it? You can put up some kind of handicap, sort of like a horse race, right? A good horse tended to win a lot, so making the horse racing not interesting. So then you have to put some weight on it, so as to slow down the fastest horse, so as to make a horse race more interesting. So the handicapping. This handicap theory has been quite popular in evolution, especially relating to sexual selection. And you can see these features, these Mandarin, and these monkeys, primates with the kind of males with bright facial structure as a handicap to show their body condition, their higher level immunity, so as to attract females. And birds, the Guyana cock-a-rock, probably one of the most beautiful birds in the world, and it just done up the ridiculous plumage. It's just orange in tropical forest. And you have swordfish, and you have these sexy sword, which serves nothing else but to attract to females. And people use the same thing. Is this a Lamborghini or something? Yeah, looks like people. Which also means you have money. You have to show it. You cannot drive a Ford Focus to show I have money. There's no way. You have to drive something different. You have to do something different. So that's the message that indicating that you have something which makes you fit. And the people as well. And the tribal people who don't have a Mercedes, and they done up these huge masks. This is really heavy. These are the Dugongs of Mali. These are tribal people, and every we call it mating season, but people doing the courtship. Courtship was biology, of course. We use biological terminology, but they done up this huge mask. You need several people to help to put your mask on the head. And when you dance, you have to dance really steadily. Otherwise, your neck could be broken. So the wimpy ones cannot do that. These teenagers, the 12, 13, or 14 years old could not do that. These really strong men, done up with huge, very heavy, these masks. And people, and just showing that you are strong by handling the heavy burden. And people living in, the devoted people living in these really remote, difficult to access places as their shrines. So live there with nothing, with kind of austerity, with kind of hard, very, very much hard in life conditions, in living conditions, showing their devotion. So this is a handicap. Okay. And priests forego. In many religions, priests forego reproductive option to show that they are truly dedicated, because reproduction probably is the most important thing, right? To show that they are dedicated to God. And college students will do some funny things. This is a male who's doing some backward what?
A cake stand.
Yeah, the hand standing, and drinking a beer upside down. So that's to show that they are so good. They are so good. Especially when some reproductively aged females are around. They are more likely to be encouraged to do so. So don't be surprised that you see that often. All right. So that is the way people show how fit they are. It's a handicap. It's a handicap to show that I'm truly good. So then you look at that. How we do that to show that I'm good. I'm speaking the truth. I'm trustworthy. And people do that. You have a Holy Bible. In court, in some serious places, you even have two of them instead of one. You put the hand there to show that I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. So these are the ways people do. And kids often do these pinky promise, right? Pinky promise. But in Japan, they do something more. You look at the pinky over there. They cut off their pinky to show that I'm devoted. I'm devoted. So I'm going to keep my promise. So that's the way probably could, in future, some of you, but I wouldn't recommend it. But it's a possibility that if you want to ask a person to marry you, for example, can you can you get your pinky cut or something to keep your promise? But this is hard in our society with high divorce rate. Otherwise, you don't want to have two pinkies, right? But then you relate to that, the problem with our society, with our the distrust about our Congress, is that we have corruption. That's corruption. That there are two kinds of corruption. One is so-called hard corruption. These are illegal, unlawful. So, for example, you look at the deal. You get deal done. You get money paid, and nobody talk about it. And the so-called soft corruption, these are lawful but unethical, which is quite prevalent in our society. Eric Cantor, a few years ago, was the second man in Congress, right, after John Boehner. And Eric Cantor was not elected. Somehow surprisingly defeated by a Democrat. I forgot, in Virginia, but then suddenly he got a position in Wall Street making millions of dollars. So this is kind of, people often say revolving doors. You support me in terms of policy, and once you are done, I will give you a good permanent position, lucrative position, for example. So he's making a lot more money than when he was a congressman. Nowadays, you can deal with your children. Your children can work in my firms. These dealings are lawful, but of course to everybody unethical. But that kind of dealing, prevalence of that kind of dealing, actually destroy our trust about the politicians. So what you can do is that if we can actually fight against this soft corruption, actually our politics will be a lot more cleaner. And also, politicians will be more trustworthy. They are statesmen. And unfortunately, people don't think that way, which was the initiative which got defeated in our state. It's about limiting the kind of dealing. 1464, something like that, I forgot, but there was an initiative in our state which was defeated. So the situation will stay, I believe. And then I was looking at what can, basically the same thing. I used a provocative title that the socialist programs are unpopular today. The reason, if you look at the picture, you see that the tax rate, this is tax rate in terms of percent of GDP. You could see these are Nordic countries. They are a lot higher. They are 45 to 50% in terms of GDP. They're a lot more. United States about here. So we pay tax about 25% for middle class people. About 25% we pay tax. And they are still arguing down. Probably pretty soon we'll be like Chile and Mexico. So the tax revenue, the level of taxation actually is closely related to what? Social trust. And the R value is 0.44. It's quite high, which says something, right? Says something. So the reason that we've been keep arguing for lower tax is what? It's because we don't trust each other anymore. You think about Eisenhower's time, 91% for the top incomes. 91%, probably they would have little left, right, after the taxation. 91% during Eisenhower's administration. But now, I look at the data, every decade, our public trust, social trust level declines by about 10%. So now we are here. Now we are here below 50%. It's like Korea. Korea has a lot of scandals, and Slovak as well, Poland, at about their level. These are countries we know there are a lot of scandals. Often the government does not function well. So I wrote an article as to how to promote the trust. And then realized that, well, the Scandinavian countries are small and they're ethnically and culturally very similar. The people are easy to deal with. Everybody looks like the same, and easy to connect, easy to know each other, and easy to trust each other. But of course, this is not United States. And the second is crisis. The reason the Eisenhower's administration could impose more than 90% of taxes on the top incomes actually was what? Just immediately after World War II. And even after the September 11 terrorist attack, we suddenly people feel like, wow, we are Americans, we are connected, right? We have to work together. Actually, there was a burst of social trust at that time. Of course, W blew it by waging these two wars, especially the Iraqi war, which was totally illegitimate, right? It should have been avoided, but of course. So these crises actually could put people together, could make us find a common ground. But of course, the easiest way is what? Is fighting corruption. And this is the picture. You can see that this is integrity score, and this is social trust. You will see the higher the government integrity is, the higher the trust level. And the correlation is extremely high, probably about, this is our value is 0.511. So this is our square value. Our value probably is about 70%. So actually, by cleaning up the government and making government trustworthy, actually the social trustworthy, you fight corruption and you can actually promote social trust.
How is that measured, just generally? Social trust? This
is every year. There's an international organization. Every year they have this integrity score about all these governments in the world. The social trust is survey. It's just survey of different nations.
Whether people trust their government?
Yeah, that's right. They will ask different levels. I think 5 levels, 5 scale level. Government can be trusted or can be trusted somewhat or cannot be trusted in all these things. So every year there's an organization doing that, monitoring the government integrity. So United States is about here. Not too bad, because hard corruption is not much in our country, but soft corruption is the problem. So if you can fight soft corruption, actually you can rebuild people's trust.
I have a question of whether or not you considered analyzing the variable of the differences between collectivist societies versus individualistic societies and how that relates.
This is all about democratic societies, because otherwise, there would be too much. Yeah. This is all democratic societies. So of course, then we find something more relevant. My first article actually was about this, and turned out to be lots of people reading it, and people pointed at me, yeah, you are the guy who found that body size is related to electability of presidents. But in January, actually, people found that Marco Rubio at that time was one of the serious contenders, wearing a boot with like 2-inch high heels. So people made the fun with him because you know that people guys often do these things, right? So Marco Rubio was not short. Marco Rubio was 5'10", right? Marco Rubio was not short, but in comparison, he was shorter than Jeb Bush, 6'2", Donald Trump, 6'2". Everybody else was taller than Marco Rubio, so Marco Rubio felt that he was short. But Marco Rubio, of course, knew the idea that when in neck-to-neck competition, the taller candidate tended to win a lot more likely. I think 70-something to 30-something, the winning rate. So Marco Rubio wanted to up his chance by wearing the high heel boots, but he assumed that people would not discover it. But suddenly your body size raised by that 2 inch, people of course pay attention to you. So this was like a vain attempt. But in behavioral economics or psychology or that, it's called the halo effect. People judge another person. People normally do not judge another person comprehensively. They only pick one thing and assume everything else is good. So this is called the halo effect, and I'm going to show you. Do I have time? I don't want to. Oh, it's okay. Yeah,
I probably don't need to tell you that attractive people can enjoy certain advantages in their lives. But what might surprise you is the extent to which attractiveness can matter. For example, taller people on average make more money than shorter people. A study by Judge in Cable from 2004 found that a person who is 72 inches tall could expect to make $5,525 more per year than someone who is 65 inches tall, even after controlling for weight, gender, and age. Implications for the stiletto heel and stilt industries aside, that is a big difference. And it doesn't stop there. Various studies also indicate that you can expect to make more money if you are not obese, blonde, work out regularly, and or wear makeup. We wanted to interview the highest paid man for this segment, but he couldn't be reached for comment. But at the same time, most employers don't actively decide to pay the best looking people more. After all, there's no hotness box on the yearly raise checklist. Instead, it has a lot to do with unconscious processes. We might not even realize it's happening, but the halo effect is manipulating us all. Allow me to explain. Buzz. When it comes to decision making, people like to believe that they make their choices based on well thought out reasoning. Gee, wouldn't that be nice? But in reality, we're all affected by a number of cognitive biases, or unconscious mistakes in logical thinking that can affect our actions and beliefs. The halo effect, named by psychologist Edward Thorndike in the year 1920, is a cognitive bias in which liking one aspect of something makes you like other unrelated aspects of that thing more. It's sometimes referred to as the "what is beautiful is good" stereotype, because physical attractiveness is usually involved. For example, if the person you're dating has really nice abs or a super cute smile, you might also believe that they're more intelligent and funny than they actually are. If you've ever been completely Twitter-pated with someone and later looked back on the relationship and thought, "What was I thinking?" you've probably experienced some of the halo effect. And the halo effect is a huge deal in the advertising industry. A company can use a catchy jingle, bright and colorful packaging, or a cute mascot to change our overall impression of the product. Something as simple as changing the appearance of the product can change everything that we believe about it. In one study, orange juice was served from 6 different containers, such as glass bottles, plastic bottles, cartons, you get the idea. Participants ranked each juice on parameters of taste, aroma, and mouthfeel. The critiques were wildly different, with participants choosing favorites and assigning colorful adjectives to each. I must say that this juice was toasty warm and frighteningly unkempt. But here's the thing, there was only ever one kind of juice. The participants completely fabricated their opinions about the juice based only on the appearance of the container. This experiment was also done on TV by Penn & Teller. See the description for information on that video. It's very entertaining. So if changing a beverage's packaging affects our opinion, you can imagine how much of an impact changing a person's appearance can have on our beliefs about them. Well, a study by Dion Bergsheet and Walster looked at the beliefs that we have about attractive people. Participants looked at photos of people of varying attractiveness before filling out surveys about them. On average, participants rated more attractive people as being more likely to be satisfied with their career, as having better personalities, and as being more likely to be happy and successful across their lives. And the halo effect also works backwards. If you dislike one aspect about something, you'll also dislike other aspects about that thing more. This is sometimes referred to as the horns effect. Hey now! Relax, Lucy, it doesn't refer to horns specifically. For example, "Well, your credentials are great, but we won't be pursuing your application any further." What? Why? "I'll be honest, the Hitler mustache is very off-putting." Who's Hitler? I'm rocking the Charlie Chaplin. No, please leave. Right now you might be thinking, yeah, some people can be really shallow, but I try really hard not to judge books by their covers. Well, get off your high horse, because the halo effect persists.
So that's enough to show that we are all fooled. We are all fooled by halo effect, and these advertisement people often use that to fool us, relate to something irrelevant, and makes us feel like, well, yeah, It's related. So this is actually a halo effect was documented 2,000 years ago in China as well. And they say that well, people like the crow because people like the house. People like that, so they like the crow as well. Crow is not a lucky symbol in China. It was unfortunate symbol in China. So, but even that is included because the house is nice. So this is the well circulated statistics that I drew, and the people before 1900 actually the short people and tall people were equally likely to be elected. And you look at this is Washington, and this is what John Adams, and this is very short, well below 5'5". Madison was the shortest president. And then you look at that before 1900, the short people and tall people are equally likely to be elected. But then after 1900, and you see what short presidents totally disappeared. And you look at the trend. Actually, the presidents getting taller and taller these days. So the halo effect is getting increasingly strong. People just look for somebody who is impressive, and because of the photography and the videos nowadays. And now even the broadcasted debates and everything people could see easily. So that was the reason Marco Rubio wanted to be tall as well physically. But this is kind of like you run into danger as well. You could elect somebody like Warren Harding, one of the worst presidents in history, in American history. He was doing pretty much nothing while his cabinet was stealing money from the treasurer, stealing the money from the government. He died when he was touring the Pacific Northwest, and some people claimed that his wife killed him because at that time the scandal was so bad that his wife would like to protect his reputation as president. But he was an impressive person. He went all the way from a small town newspaper reporter in Ohio to state senator to U.S. Congress and U.S. senator. Eventually, he was elected to be the president because of his impressive.
How tall was he?
Look, he was 6. At that time, was quite tall. Yeah, quite tall. So this was my picture was taken at Monticello at Madison's house. This is the real size of Madison. I am quite short, and Madison was even shorter. Yeah, but today, it's unlikely Madison would be elected. But of course, then we have to talk about this issue as well, and why we have so much strong support for Trump. Now, there was this is a puzzle for you guys. For those of you who have already done so, you can still participate. But this is the puzzle for you. You have 2 choices. One is you gain $500, or you get $0 to $1,000 by flipping a coin. Which one do you prefer? Right? If you prefer 500 for sure, raise your hands. If you prefer the other way, flipping coin, I only have very few. All right, a couple of you. These people who do not raise a hand don't want money. And given the second situation, you lose $500, okay, versus you flip coin to lose nothing or lose 1,000. Which option is more appealing to you?
And you have to do one?
500, yeah, one. How about lose $500? Who would like to lose $500? Who would like to flip coin? Wow, the majority. That's exactly reflect what we do. Now, coming back to the current, I wouldn't say, but that kind of choice It's obviously in other species as well. Capuchin monkeys do that. It's called risk avoidance or risk aversion, because you lose, when you are in a better situation, you lose situation, you tend to gamble. That's for the majority of people, and even for the capuchin monkeys. Turn out to be, it works for plants as well. You don't need a brain to make that choice. In one study published earlier this year in August, I believe, in Current Biology, this Israeli guy actually put a pea plant on the two kind of scenarios. One is that they get a lot of nutrients, right? This is get a lot of nutrients, and this is the predictable nutrients, and this is unpredictable. But the total amount is the same. They prefer the $500, which is predictable, sure gain. But when nutrients level is low, what happens is this is predictable. This is unpredictable. They actually send more roots into these unpredictable pots, which means they gamble. It's the same thing. It's an evolutionary strategy. Even without brain, we make the same choice.
What do the capuchin monkeys do?
You give them one situation is this is a little bit more complex, but you give them constant gain, and the other is the kind of situation you vary the reward level. And they prefer when the gain is positive, they prefer the constant gain, $500. When they lose something, they prefer that kind of unpredictable loss. So it's a gambler's mentality. It's evolutionary strategy. Now you look at this year, 55% to 60% of voters don't like either candidates. So the best bumper stick is this "We All Suck" in 2016. So then you look at that. The reason is the majority of Americans think lose-lose situation. At that time, I realized it was very likely for Donald Trump to be elected. I realized that already. So this article was published in August, in October. And then you look at Clinton, you vote for Clinton, it's a sure loss. And then you have so many people, if they just vote on the view that you vote for Clinton is a sure loss, versus Donald Trump, it's a loss if he's terrible. But you win a lot if he somehow works out well. So that's exactly the mentality for vast number of people to vote for what? What?
He was tall.
Some people do, I think. So that's the part of the explanation. Part of the explanation. I won't say everything, but part of the explanation why Trump was elected. So there's a reason. So I wrote an article. The magazine is left-leaning, but turned out to be Trump is everything now. He's setting up this and that. So this is the kind of result we got. So it's actually from evolutionary sense, we actually could see more than we have been arguing. So I try not to do too much. Yeah, I think I should stop. I should skip this part. But yesterday I submitted another article using the evolutionary analysis to see beyond racism, cultural discrimination, religious discrimination, what make so many people actually to feel negative against the immigrants. So I use that. I will share with you once the article is out. So let me skip this. I use the kind of territoriality about us, and the other is less known, so-called the endowment effect. It feels like we own something, we own the society, own American way of life, and whatever any immigrant is different, people tend to feel negatively against them. So that's the kind of behavioral explanation. So basically, I put everything together, and I found one word the word of the year in Oxford for the Oxford English Dictionary is what? What's the word of the year? What? Xenophobia is the word of the year for dictionary.com. Oxford English Dictionary is so-called post-truth. Post-truth, which means regardless truth is, I'm emotional, I stick to my view. It does not matter what truth is. So we behave emotionally. So we react to the world emotionally regardless of facts or truth. You see the election, you see economic issues, you see science and evolution, for example, global warming. You cannot persuade people to see global warming is happening by facts, which also means it's sad for us. Why? Because we spend so much time looking at the data, parsing data, interpret data to people, and people don't believe us. It's opposed to truth. Education, the power of education is limited. It's limited. So we have to look into our more deeper, the kind of feeling, the emotion that we are reptiles. We are using the reptilian brain in our complex world. We still use the simplistic thinking, emotion. So, which also means there is a lot more to be done from evolutionary perspective, right? To approach to our reptilian brain especially in our education system, and how we can make our education more effective. Well, people often use emotion to trump their analytical thinking. So that's exactly what we are now. And I talk about a little about freelancing science. It's busy, but it's exciting. It's exciting. And even you are in vacation, you are still thinking about these things all the time. And while you don't make money. So I wouldn't recommend, if you want to do freelancing and talking about science to the society at large, I wouldn't recommend to do that. So I have many to thank for Kappa Phi, Jeff and Rob for providing this opportunity to share some of my ideas with you, and also I have many these media platforms to get me connected with other people. I welcome you to share ideas with me, criticize some of my ideas, and help me to improve. And thanks a lot.